The Groucho letters to and from Groucho Marx. Welcome to Chatman booth. I am the Chatman Jabari at Chatman booth, ChatmanBooth. So, round by Leechmere, that amazing 4-story antique place. Can't remember the name of it. That's where I got this book for a song. And there's no conceivable way that I would have wanted to have this talk show on this channel if it wasn't for this book. I look at a lot of Groucho Marx just before you see me, every time you see me. March 1952, Groucho wrote his brother Gummo. It's a short letter. I'm going to read a little bit of it to you. Dear Gummo, I'm not sure whether it's another cold coming on or my old aversion to making speeches, especially to an audience of comedians. When they laugh, it's because, like me, they've just thought of something they're about to say themselves. Anyway, here's a little tribute to a genuinely great man, George Jessel. If I remain chicken and refuse to show, will you take over for me? Thanks. Your big brother, Groucho. Oh, P.S. And don't forget, Big Brother is always watching. You're going to hear a little rustling paper, and I'm going to tell you 3 jokes that I heard this week, and I was like, oh crap. We'll just say crap. I didn't say crap. I said something way better than crap. But I was like, oh, crap, I got to write that down. I got to tell these jokes on my show. So you're going to hear a little wrestling paper, and I'm going to try these jokes out for the first time. I haven't told these jokes to anybody. The date is, by the way, but that we're filming this, March 2nd, 2018, our year of the us. Have you seen Black Panther? Yeah. Now, I'm told the only 2 white guys in the film are Martin Freeman and Andy Serkis, which makes them the Tolkien white guys. Okay, now listen, I tell a lot of dad jokes. But I don't have any kids, which makes me a faux pas. Number 3, or if you're in Inglourious Bastards, 3. All right, on a more serious subject. Now, I tried to Google Warshak test the other day, but the only thing that came up was pictures of my parents fighting. Chatman booth. So it's not all that common for me to seek out to have a guest on a second time. You know, I prefer to interview people that I haven't talked to a lot, and I prefer to be one and done because, you know, everybody's got a story and I want to hear every one. Steve Feynman is returning in studio here in Union Square, the heart of Union Square, where Somerville Media functions. And Steve Feynman has described himself as an average Joe from Boston. And, you know, I beg to differ. I don't think he's average. However, our previous interview, it went great. It was fantastic. But I really wanted to discuss something with Steve because I knew that it would touch you. You would find something in common with it. You would have commonalities. I want to talk with Steve today about something that he has gone through over the last, we'll find out exactly how many years. Steve Feynman, welcome back.
How you doing?
What do I handshake here? Great. Thanks for coming to the studio. This is great. I didn't even think we were going to be in this space. Isn't it nice?
Works out, yeah.
Yeah, it works out. It works out. So since we're somewhat limited for time, let me just cut to the chase. When was the first time that you received a diagnosis of having cancer?
Cancer, the underlying illness, is the better question. Cancer was more of a formality in that it was bound to happen at some point. When did I first receive it? Technically, it was about, I don't know, 2004 whereabouts. I would say that it was about this, August of 2004. I showed up at the emergency room after having just these incredible headaches, um, and they took an MRI. And what did they see? They saw massive lesions on my head, and they weren't quite sure what they were, how they got there. And so then came the brain biopsies, so on and so forth, and all my autoimmune issues.
What's a brain biopsy like?
I don't
I mean,
know.
you go all the way under, I assume?
I was all the way under, and they hook your head up to an orbital so that your head doesn't move.
Mm-hmm.
And they pretty much take the equivalent of what we would see as a drill, a cordless drill,
Yeah.
drill into your skull, and then with a needle, very carefully, they take out just, a little piece, and that gets put under a microscope.
Did you know your wife at this point?
Nope.
So who was with you in the hospital?
My mother and my father.
Now your father's no longer with us, is that
No,
right?
He died of cancer, I think it was like 5-6 years ago now.
And does it go even further back in your family?
His mother had breast cancer and died in her 50s.
Jesus,
So
Mary and Joseph.
I never actually met my grandmother on that side.
So your parents both had the score. They knew what was going on even better than you did while
Mhm.
you're in there. What was it a source of relief having those people in the room, or were you more worried about them than yourself?
I think I was more worried about them only because where I'm really good at compartmentalizing my emotions, my mother, though she puts on a good game face, she's awful at it. And my dad, he doesn't show a lot of emotion, but you could tell he was very concerned and he wasn't really saying much.
So a couple of the things that I really want to touch on here is well, there's several things. I want to address the emotional aspect of it. So as you began to find out more and more information and your diagnosis became clearer, how is that to absorb? How is that to accept?
Well, let me stop you first and foremost and let you know that there really has never been a traditional diagnosis. What we know about this entire situation is that my immune system does not function like the average person. And in understanding that factitious viruses, or bacteria, they kind of come and go and, build up benign, not tumors, but just these benign areas of growth across my body, which is my immune system responding to the bacteria or the virus, but I'm not necessarily sick. So all that inflammation and the headaches that I had in my head, after they got the biopsies back, they were all non-specific. They came back, nobody knew what they were looking at other than a bunch of white blood cells. That happened with both of my lung biopsies as well.
So brain down to lungs. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this is because I can't talk to anyone for any length of time and bring up the C word and not have an immediate or direct connection. So I want to ask you about, and this is going to cover more period of time than just the beginning of what was going on, but I want to ask you about the personal emotional weight of these foreign cells in your body. And now let me say before you answer that, let me say that I looked at closely the interview that we did with you a couple of weeks ago, and I thought about my having seen you at your worst. Like, you look great on camera a couple of weeks ago, and I thought about the times that I have seen you when we thought you were going to die. And let me tell you, it's night and day. What's it like? What's it like to live under?
Well, let's back up even further because
a death sentence is what it was.
When I was a kid, I had hemolytic anemia, which meant that my own immune system was killing off my red blood cells. So at the ripe old age of 4, I was in Framingham Union Hospital, and the doctors were trying to figure out what the hell was going on. what it ended up being was that in order to save my life and figure out what was going on, they had to transfer me to Children's Hospital here in Boston. And they ran so many tests and gave me so many bags of blood, but I was just a pale figurine for multiple years after that. And I had a relapse when I was about, like 9 or 10 years old. So we talk about facing death and the C word and this and that. It's like the theme of my life, unfortunately. So it doesn't affect me as deeply as it would other people, which is why I think I'm able to sit here and talk about it and not come off as highly emotional.
I've spent a lot of time in and around and near the Mayo Clinic, and over, my decades of existence, when I look about and hear about the modern medicine and the city of Boston, I just hear Mayo, 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 Mayo. Like there are so many dedicated and good doctors and so much cutting edge science here in Boston. I really appreciate that. So when did you get married?
It has now been about 2 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought it was like 2 or 3.
Nope. I met Stephanie, and 6 months later I proposed to her.
How'd you meet her?
Online, actually.
Yeah, good. That's the, yeah.
But the other interesting thing was 3 months into our relationship, I had a seizure. And because of that, I also ended
That she witnessed?
Yeah. And I also, well, no, actually, that one she didn't witness. This was the one where I rolled my car and could no longer drive. So I ended up losing my in-home therapy job. And I was struggling paying the bills, so on and so forth. I had to give up the car, which meant I had to find a new job. And she just said, move in with me.
So can you talk about how money and the money you have or don't have is a factor in seeking treatments to, save your own hide, your own life? How does money factor into having illnesses as serious as the ones that you've had?
Here's what I will say. In terms of health insurance, I've been lucky that I could be on and off Medicaid pretty much my whole life. And being disabled at the moment, I am able to be on Medicare. Now, in between, especially because it's now law in Massachusetts that you must have some form of health care coverage, the grace of my parents and the last few years living on my own, it was buying it off the health connector and hoping it covered enough. I mean, for right now, for example, I don't have dental insurance because I can't afford it. But during chemotherapy, when I was hospitalized once, I was just sitting there minding my own business. I bite down on a sandwich, and I had...
Out comes the tooth.
No, cavity. One of the fillings came right out. And I have not been able to have that looked at. And I am lucky that I am not in pain, and I am lucky that, I'm able to sit here and even talk about it, to tell you the truth.
I am uninsured as well, and I was called in for a physical, or decided to have a physical just a few weeks ago, and I remember just making a list of things, like, all right, if I had to, I got to say all these things to this doctor, I got to get it all out at once. And so I tell her what I have to say, and she's like, but why in the world wouldn't you have come and told me about this, given your family history with, arthritis or whatever it is? Why wouldn't you have told me this before? And she genuinely seemed, amazing, lovely woman, like shocked and surprised that someone would sit on a medical issue for any length of time. And I was like, lady, there are more of me than there are of you. There are
Jabari,
more folks.
I'm going to stop you right there. And as a patient and as
A patient advocate.
who works in mental health and also advocates for patients, you have no excuses, especially with the health connector having subsidized plans that adequately cover even basic health.
I guess we're going to have to bring you back and have even more conversations about this now.
No matter what happens in my own life, I just keep moving forward. Because if you're not moving forward, you're standing still and everything else is passing you by. So to get back for a second to that whole spiel about when I thought I was going to die, I think what I was more fearful of than anything else, honestly, was not being around, whether it was as an observer or a player, and not getting to see the way in which our society moves, our friends and family grow, etc. So I have to say that having been around cats, especially while going through that, was, in a lot of ways kind of mirroring the simplicity of what it means not only to be human, but to just be a good person in general.
Wow. Well said. Very well said. You're watching Chatman Booth, and you, like me, one distant day are going to be someone's ancestor. Obviously, Wakanda forever.
Founded in the United States in 1972. Throughout the centuries, very few individuals have ever come close to achieving the incredible level of skill and ability that Grandmaster Kim has achieved. Grandmaster is renowned as the living icon of traditional Mudo, traditional martial arts. Still to this day, there are many individuals who have witnessed the incredible skills and abilities that Grandmaster has clearly demonstrated, as Grandmaster is not known to merely talk about what he is capable of, but instead he clearly demonstrates his skill and ability. This follows one of the main traditional Mudo principles that one should never merely talk about their abilities and achievements, but instead should clearly demonstrate their abilities and achievements. As the 8th generation Young-Do Grandmaster, 8th generation Young-Do Grandmaster, Grandmaster Iron Kim has achieved the incredible treasures of strength and harmony of the body, mind, and spirit. The goal of mind and body harmony has been sought by people for centuries, but many people have found it incredibly difficult to achieve. So there's an appropriate way to enter this space, and instructor Ian is going to explain the bow to us now.
Right, so as a beginning student, your hands start 2 tight fists by your sides, feet together. And whenever you're bowing directly to whoever it is that you're bowing to, right? You're showing that care, respect, that attention, right? It's like you are worth just that much, right? And full attention. So this represents your mind and body. In the school, they're separate when you start. Then when you get about halfway to black belt, your hands come together, right? It'll be left hand open, right fist. So like that, right. And then when you get to black belt, your mind and body are united. So mind and body are separate, mind and body start to come together, mind and body are united.
Let's move over here, because the Grand Master of this practice is pictured here.
Yes.
And your eyes can't help but find the photo, whether you're in this room or the office. We want to know more about the Grand Master.
Right. So he started training when he was 7, and this was in the mountains of South Korea. And his master came from China, and that's where most of the knowledge comes from. It's mostly Chinese knowledge. And the Grandmaster achieved the level of master, training endlessly, day and night, from 7 years old to 14, and it was an incredible human being. And then came down from the mountains, started to teach more, started to learn, continue to learn from his master, and then he reached a point where he was able to go around and collect knowledge from collect and share all the knowledge from around Asia. He went to Japan, he went to China, went to other places in Korea, and gathered all the other 8 martial arts. So
That's bold.
Right, absolutely. So most of our knowledge is Bagua Chung, Bagua based, and you can look up the research there, but it's a circle walking meditation, what you were filming over there. And then, he learned Kendo, he learned Aikido, he learned Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, Hapkido, those sort of things. He just gathered the knowledge around Asia and brought it together and united it, found the common roots between everything, and then he brought that to America. So what we're learning is the root of martial arts essentially, and there are three main kinds of like really deep martial arts. There's Shaolin, which most people know, Shaolin Kung Fu, right? There's Wudang, which is Taoist, and it's it's also Bagua based, and then there's Umyang, which is our line. Right. So there's three main knowledges, and we're lucky enough to be able to like learn from our line. And Grandmaster is an 8th generation master, and he's pretty much at the end of 1500 year lineage.
That was going to be my next question. 1,500-year lineage of masters.
Right. And that's what the line represents. That's why the flags are so important. That's why Grandmaster is so important. It's like it's not him and it's not me and it's not the other regional instructors and it's not the instructors who were teaching 100 years ago. It's the line. It's everybody who's ever taught and ever learned and ever grown through practice and put themselves through. So that's why we're connected to that kind of age.
Happiest hour.
The happiest hour.
The happiest hour.
Besides all the mental questions you asked me that made me reconsider my entire life. First of all, where do I start with that? Tom Cruise has a tooth in the direct middle of his face, which haunts me to this day. I dropped out of college as soon as I saw it.
All that sand? I loved all that sand. Tom Cruise and sand?
What?
So sometimes when something happens and Tom Cruise gets really dirty, I think about bathing him. I guess we don't have that in common. Oh. Holy shit, great callback. We're on the pillows, by the way.
It's pillow talk.
It's pillow talk.
Because we're sitting on pillows
With
and
Ellen
talking.
and Jabari sitting on pillows. Like,
Shocking.